Homeless boy begs rich chef for leftovers. Instead, chef puts the food in trash. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful true-life billionaire stories. Sir, I'm starving, please, just the scraps. The frail voice of a young boy cracked as he stood near the kitchen door, barefoot and shivering. The chef turned slowly, his white coat spotless, his arms crossed. He looked the boy up and down. His tattered clothes, dirt-streaked face, sunken cheeks. Then he sneered. Scraps? You think I'd let a stray animal like you lower the image of my restaurant? He lifted a tray of untouched filet mignon and lobster tail. Then, without a blink, dumped it all into the trash. The boy's stomach growled louder than his voice. His knees buckled. He didn't cry. He just watched. Brandon was only 12, but the street had aged him. His parents had died in a fire when he was 9. Foster homes hadn't worked. He'd run from the last one after being beaten with a belt for taking an extra slice of bread. Since then, alleyways had been his bedroom. Church basements, his warmth. Dumpsters, his pantry. Today had been especially brutal. Rain soaked his threadbare hoodie. He had managed to get to Le Jardin du Ciel, the fanciest restaurant in the city. It wasn't just expensive, it was elite. Celebrities, billionaires, foreign dignitaries dined there. But Brandon wasn't there to dine. He'd seen them toss out untouched food before. He thought, just maybe, someone would show him kindness. He was wrong. Chef Roland Deville was known for 2 things: perfect dishes and zero tolerance. He'd built his empire with knives, literal and political. He didn't cook for the hungry. He cooked for the powerful. When Brandon asked for food, Roland didn't just ignore him. He punished him. In front of his sous chefs, the maitre d', and 2 waiters. He lifted an untouched tray of luxurious food and, slowly and dramatically, dumped it straight into the trash. Lobster, steak, asparagus, garlic butter potatoes, everything. There. You want food? Go dive in. He laughed, clapping sarcastically. The staff chuckled uncomfortably, none daring to intervene. Brandon just stared. This isn't a soup kitchen, Roland continued, voice cold as the steel in his hands. You don't belong here. Scram. And so Brandon did. He walked down the alley, eyes empty, belly roaring, faith gone. Across the street, sitting in the back of a matte black Bentley, someone was watching. Not just watching, recording. Her name was Vanessa Grace. She was America's youngest female billionaire chef. 30 years old. Owner of 12 Michelin-starred restaurants. Her food empire had made her a legend. But unlike Roland, Vanessa didn't come from luxury. She'd once lived in a shelter with her mother, survived on stale toast and tap water. Vanessa had come to Le Jardin du Ciel undercover. She'd heard whispers about Roland's restaurant ethics and wanted to scout it out herself before buying a stake in the place. She hadn't expected to see that. The car door swung open. Did you record all of it? She asked her driver. Yes, ma'am. She looked down the street. The boy was gone. Rain still poured. Her jaw tightened. Find that boy. Tonight. By morning, the video was everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. The sight of Roland smirking while dumping full trays of gourmet food into a garbage bin as a starving boy watched, it burned through the internet like wildfire. Outrage exploded. Hashtag feed the hungry. Hashtag justice for Brandon. Hashtag trash chef Roland. Major food networks canceled Roland's show. Celebrity sponsors pulled out. 2 restaurants terminated partnerships. But Vanessa didn't post the video herself. She waited. That same night, Brandon was asleep under cardboard outside an old pharmacy. He didn't know about the video. He didn't even know someone had cared enough to watch. but he awoke to the sound of soft footsteps. A gentle hand touched his shoulder. He jolted up. "I'm sorry. I wasn't stealing, I was just—" "You're safe." Vanessa's voice cut softly through the darkness. "Come with me, please." He hesitated, staring at her kind eyes. "Are you with the chef?" "No," she smiled gently. "I'm someone who believes no child should ever be made to feel invisible." At Vanessa's penthouse, a table was already set, not just for dinner but for dignity. A warm bath, fresh clothes, bandages for his cracked feet, hot cocoa. Then, a seat at a massive table where Brandon was served chicken pot pie, buttered rolls, mac and cheese, and strawberry ice cream. He couldn't believe it. He took one bite and his body melted into the seat. A tear rolled down his cheek. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered. Vanessa kneeled beside him. "Because I once begged for scraps too. And because someone showed me love when I needed it most." Brandon nodded, swallowing another spoonful. "Thank you," he mumbled. "I'll never forget this." Vanessa didn't sleep that night. As Brandon rested peacefully in the guest room of her penthouse, his first time on a real bed in years, Vanessa scrolled through thousands of comments online. The video of Chef Roland humiliating the boy had become the #1 trending topic globally. People were furious. Some cried. Others swore they'd boycott his restaurants. Activists and food justice organizations began tagging the city council. Even celebrities were chiming in. But Vanessa wasn't interested in digital outrage. She wanted justice. And more than that, she wanted change. She made 2 phone calls that morning. First, to her legal team. Second, to her foundation director. "I want full background on the boy," she said. "Family, school, foster care. Everything. And get me a press slot for noon." When Brandon woke up, he couldn't recognize himself in the mirror. He had clean hair. His face was clear. The oversized hoodie had been replaced with a crisp sweater and jeans. On the marble counter, there was another hot meal waiting: eggs, toast, and fresh orange juice. As he ate slowly, looking out the window at the skyline, he felt warm, not just in body but in spirit. Then Vanessa joined him. "Hey, you sleep okay?" He nodded. "Better than the concrete." She smiled. "I'm heading out soon. But I want you to know something." She leaned forward. "The world saw what happened yesterday, and they're listening. But what they saw wasn't the end of your story. It's the beginning." He looked up, unsure what she meant. "Just watch the news at noon," she said. At exactly 12 p.m., cameras lit up as Vanessa Grace stood behind a podium outside one of her restaurants. "Good afternoon," she began. "Yesterday, I witnessed something disgusting. A child asked for food. He was mocked, humiliated, rejected, and his hope was tossed into the trash with gourmet leftovers." Flashes went off. "Let me be clear. Feeding the hungry is not charity. It is humanity. That boy didn't deserve scorn. He deserved compassion." Reporters scribbled as she continued. Effective immediately, the Grace Foundation will be launching a citywide program called Second Plate, a network of food pickups from restaurants where untouched meals will be redirected to shelters and food-insecure communities. Applause erupted. But she wasn't finished. "And one more thing. I've officially acquired Roland DeVille's flagship restaurant." Gasps, audible ones. "It will be shut down, renovated, and reopened in 60 days as a culinary school for homeless youth." The world exploded. In the weeks that followed, construction crews swarmed Le Jardin du Ciel. The famous golden sign came down. The black marble walls were painted over. The velvet curtains gone. In their place, chalkboards, communal tables, teaching kitchens, and gardens on the rooftop. Brandon watched every day. Vanessa gave him a front row seat to the transformation. He even got to pick the name. He chose the Hope Table. One evening, as Brandon helped unpack boxes in the new space, a voice called from the street. "You!" He turned. It was Roland DeVille, disgraced, furious. His coat was gone, his face unshaven, a shell of the man he was. "You ruined me," he barked, storming toward the boy. "This was my empire, my legacy." Brandon stood frozen. He clutched a tray of utensils. Vanessa appeared beside him like lightning. "Step back," she told Roland. "You did that to yourself." He laughed bitterly. "You think turning this place into a soup kitchen makes you noble? He's still a rat. He'll never be anything." Brandon's fists clenched. For the first time, he looked his abuser in the eye. "I may be a rat to you," he said softly, "but at least I have a heart." Vanessa smiled. "Get off my property, Roland. You're trespassing." And just like that, the man who once stood above the world walked away, ignored, irrelevant. The night before the grand opening of the Hope Table, Vanessa surprised Brandon. "You're not just cutting the ribbon," she told him. "You're also serving the first plate." "Me?" he said, wide-eyed. "I don't know how to cook." "You will. I've arranged for the best sous chef in the city to train you tonight. Ready?" He nodded, and they spent the evening chopping, stirring, tasting. He learned how to hold a knife, how to caramelize onions, how to season with instinct. It wasn't perfect, but it was his. And when the sun rose, Brandon stood in the kitchen of a restaurant he helped build, about to feed people just like him. At the ribbon cutting, Vanessa took the mic one last time. "Today is not about revenge. It's about redemption. It's about remembering the faces we ignore, and letting the next Brandon know he matters." The crowd erupted. When Brandon served the first plate, a roasted chicken dish with mashed potatoes and garlic greens, the guest, a single mom and her 2 kids, thanked him with tears in their eyes. He smiled, truly smiled, because in that moment he wasn't just a homeless boy anymore. He was a chef. He was a teacher. He was the future. Brandon stood at the back of the kitchen, watching from behind the counter as waves of people poured into the Hope Table. They didn't wear suits or carry gold cards. Most wore second-hand coats, carried plastic bags, and had eyes filled with stories the world had never cared to hear. But in this restaurant, they were royalty. Every person was seated with dignity. Every dish plated with love. Brandon's hands trembled as he carried the next tray. A teenage girl with 2 younger brothers smiled up at him. "Is it really free?" she whispered. He nodded. "And fresh." She burst into quiet tears. That moment hit him harder than hunger ever had. Behind the scenes, Vanessa had been flooded with support. Donations came from ordinary people, celebrities, and even anonymous benefactors. But one envelope stood out. It arrived without a return address, only a handwritten note inside. "For the boy who reminded me who I used to be. $10 million. Use it to keep building what matters." Vanessa had her suspicions. The handwriting was familiar. The kind of arrogance tucked beneath humility, classic Roland. Maybe even he had seen the light. She didn't care about his redemption. She cared about results. And with that 10 million, Vanessa opened 4 more branches of the Hope Table across the city. A video clip of Brandon hugging that teenage girl went viral. It wasn't even staged. A volunteer just happened to capture it. The internet fell in love with him. Not for being pitiful, but for being powerful. From trash to triumph. Boy who was starved now feeds hundreds. Formerly homeless teen launches national movement. News outlets flooded in. Late-night talk shows begged for interviews. Schools invited him to speak. But Brandon stayed grounded. "If you want to help me," he told one reporter, "help the next kid who's still out there. One cold evening, Brandon sat alone in the new garden atop the rooftop of the Hope Table. A security guard walked over and handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was a note. "Dear Brandon, my name is Eleanor. I was your caseworker when you were 3. I saw your face on TV, and I couldn't believe it. You were the sweetest baby. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you back then, but I'm proud of who you've become now. With love, Eleanor." He folded the letter and pressed it to his chest. He had lived for years believing no one had ever cared. Turns out someone did, and now he could return that care to 1,000 others. A few months later, an official invite arrived. From the president. Vanessa and Brandon were invited to speak at the National Food Equity Summit in Washington, D.C. Brandon stood before a packed hall of policymakers, chefs, and nonprofit leaders. He wasn't nervous. He was ready. "You all call it food waste," he said into the mic, "but I call it life waste. Every plate you toss is a life you're ignoring. I used to eat out of bins. Now I run a kitchen. You want to fix this country? Feed it. With heart, not leftovers." Standing ovation. A year to the day after he was rejected by Chef Roland, Brandon returned to the exact same alley. This time he wasn't alone. He carried 2 warm food trays, and behind him were volunteers holding dozens more. He walked up to a young boy sitting against the dumpster, knees tucked to his chest, shivering. Brandon knelt down, placed the food on his lap, and said, "I know what it feels like, but trust me, you won't be here forever." And as the boy looked into his eyes, something clicked. Hope. Real hope. Not just in words, but in action.